Hi everyone, welcome to episode, can you believe it, Mark? Episode 20 of FPL BlackBox. Where has the time gone?
Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I wrote it out myself. It's. I wonder. I mean, how many episodes are we going to get to? Do you reckon? How many are you thinking of doing with me? How long are you going to put up
What
with it?
was your target with the Scoutcast? It was more than Last of Summer Wine, right?
Yeah, so 360 something like that. I don't. That's a long
And
time. That's a long
I
time.
did that episode with Granville. Did you see that one where we did the episode where we overtook it, and Granville came up from the chair to the music. It was glorious.
Yeah, wonderful times. Well, we'll see how far we get, but episode 20 is quite a big achievement. I'm quite pleased at that.
Yeah,
and,
I know, nice.
It's been a pleasure to do those episodes with you, and the season continues.
Same to you, my friend.
And what an interesting season it's been.
Relentless. That's the word.
It is, though. It's what it feels at the moment. It's like with quick turnaround on the game week again, and we're not the only ones. There's so many podcasts out there having to turn around content really, really quickly. I mean, it's great in a way. There's so much football, but at the same time, it's quite hard to keep pace with it all, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We talked about it before. With all the games, it is relentless. It constantly feels like I'm thinking about football, watching football, and I think I've definitely lost some enjoyment of FPL and football, given what's going on. I mean, I'm very grateful to have it at all, because obviously it could be completely cancelled and that would be even worse. But I'm finding like matches that I would normally be really excited to watch are kind of almost feeling a bit like a chore at times to sit through. So I'm trying to be a bit more balanced with the games I watch and the games I don't watch now, and I think that's helping me get a bit more excited again.
Yeah, that is it. I can't watch every game. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? A few years back, if you said every single game you piped into your living room, you'd be like, "That's amazing," but it's life wrecking in terms of your relationships and your family. So I have to really kind of be careful and ration it a little bit, and then just have to make do with highlights on some matches. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy times, and obviously when you're having a good game week, it's brilliant. But when you're having a bad one and that drip feed, it's like agony, isn't it? It really is. So we'll talk our game weeks, of course. We're going to look at some interesting stats I've got today, just on bargains that are available, because I think you've touched on this previously. You've looked at this and the fact that the heavy hitters, compared to some of the value players out there, just aren't performing. And so I've got some interesting data which shows the last 7 game weeks and the top performers and how they rank up against some of the more expensive assets. And it's just so surprising how you could have got by with, on a shoestring. And it's come at a time when, obviously we've got no De Bruyne, no Kane, no Vardy. So we've all got money in the bank. We've all got crazy amounts in the bank. And when you consider that feels odd, but when you look at the players who have performed recently, it actually doesn't, because there's so many bargains available.
Am I right in thinking that if you'd made a dead team with a squad that was worth 77 million, you'd be winning FPL?
Who told you that? Where did that come from?
I read that somewhere, and I can't remember where, but I'm sure I saw that stat somewhere.
Well, I mean that could be entirely possible. So when we look at the data I've got later, I mean that does look feasible, put it that way. Let's see anyway. So we're going to talk about that. We've got our watch list. We're bringing them back because it's been a while since we looked at them. So I thought this will be a good time to revive them and look at who is attracting attention. We're also going to look at the double game week and blank situation. I believe there's been a development on that tonight. I think a tweet from Man City, or some information from Man City coming through now about the likely double game week that they're going to have before game week 26, so we're going to touch on that. Lots of stuff. We'll try and cram in as much as we can in the next hour and a half to 2 hours. We'll see what we can do.
Not long to digest it.
No, we're not, are we? We do indulge ourselves, but that's, people seem to put up with it, so it's fine. Let's look at our game weeks then. Let's start with yours, as 59 points overall, but that was with an 8-point hit, wasn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, so I did the -8. We were talking last time. I was like, I'm going to attack this game week. I'm going to get my Everton players in, because I'm going to attack that Newcastle game. I need to get Gundogan in because they've got Sheffield United, and we've seen how good he is. And I mean, it's pretty much as bad as a -8 could go. Just they all blanked, and I captained one of them, so absolutely awful. Luckily, the players I took out didn't do anything, because that would have been a bit of a nightmare. I benched Bamford because I was so sure that he
yeah.
wasn't going to get anything against Leicester, and managed to get him on. I mean, if he'd stayed on the bench, it really would have been a disaster. So luckily, I got him on. I escaped with 51 points, which isn't too bad. It gave me a kind of a 70,000 drop or something. So didn't put me back into the million mark. And best thing, Mark, for in the cup.
You're still in it. You're still hanging on to that dream. I mean, we joke about this, but it would be really nice.
I'm going for it.
I know it would be really nice. And I've said that when if you can get to the final, I want you to wear a white. So whatever comes to us, whether you get to the final or if you're still in the cup, if we hit 20,000 subscribers, we're about 12 and a bit now. So there's a chance we'll get to 20,000 before the end of the season. Might not happen, but if we do, and you're still in the cup, then you've got to wear a white suit, Liverpool style.
But I have got a tough opponent this week.
Yeah.
His team looks really good, and it's going to come down to my Everton players and Son, who I'm a bit nervous about given what I saw last week. They're my kind of main differentials against him. He's got like Grealish in.
Or her rank?
It's a he. I think he is about. I think it's about 100,000. Let me just confirm, because I know everyone is keen. 139,000. He's got Martinez, Creswell, Kilman, Stones, Salah, Maddison, Grealish, Fernandez, Bamford, Antonio, Watkins.
Yeah.
But then on his bench, he's got Sterling and Cancelo. So he's got a really, really strong squad. So this one's going to be tough.
That sounds a bit worrying, to be honest. You're going to have to pull out no hits this week, please, as if you're going to continue.
No hits this week. No hits this week.
No minus 8. So Dina, come on, give us an appraisal. I mean, it didn't go to plan, did it? Because I mean, I've got to admit, I was looking at him as well. I wanted to take a hit, but in the end, I didn't do it. And Dina was one of the players, along with Barnes, that we kind of talked about. Back at left back, Everton were terrible, weren't they? Absolutely awful. Shocking.
Yeah, I mean, the first sort of 5 or 10 minutes, they were knocking the ball around really nicely, and they looked really confident. And then they just stopped doing that and just forgot how to play. And I think it was, everyone. I mean, mostly Shelby. They just knocked absolute lumps out of Rodriguez. It was obviously a tactic they had, and it worked.
It was, wasn't it? It was.
And what they really needed to do was bring on a bit of steel in midfield. Why didn't Tom Davies come on? And they brought on Gomez, and I was like, really? He is not the person who's gonna shore up the midfield and win you this midfield battle. And Newcastle just carried on battering them, and
they bullied them.
Deserved the win.
In the first half, they were like, well, we're going to lead the foot in on Rodriguez a couple of times. If one of us gets booked, we'll pass him on. And that was a clear intent. I mean, Shelby's always one to indulge in that kind of activity. And Rodriguez, he stayed on the pitch, but he did take a battering. And I think just generally, Wilson bullied the centre backs as well. I mean, I was really surprised how Wilson kind of got the better of Keane and Mina, who are two strong centre backs who I thought weren't there to be bullied. But he absolutely terrorised them, didn't he? With his movement, his strength, holding up the ball. He looked incredible. Absolutely his best performance for Newcastle. And they did look a different team in the second half against Leeds, and they did look a different team in that game against Everton. And I think we're going to look at some data later. And I think they're a team that we've got to keep an eye on now, because Bruce may well have turned a bit of a corner, but we'll see. But yeah, Everton were very disappointed. And we both got Calvert-Lewin, of course. And he hardly got a touch, did he? I mean, really, he didn't. I mean, what struck me is that Wilson and Calvert-Lewin are probably going for the same spot in Southgate's squad. And on that evidence, Calvert-Lewin's got work to do, because Wilson didn't get, doesn't get brilliant service in that Newcastle team. It was pretty decent on the day, but doesn't normally. But he was just wanting the ball more, and he was making runs down the channel. And Calvert-Lewin, I guess he's been told, get in the box and stay there. Offered nothing, did he?
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple of nice flicks and tricks and stuff, but never really did anything properly threatening. It was really disappointing. I mean, Dean's crossing wasn't really at it in the game as either, which doesn't help. I was hoping he'd be at left wing, because Godfrey's been really good for them and really solid at left back. And I think, they kind of needed that, and they missed that. Allowing Dean to bomb forward a bit, and he struggled in that match more than I thought he would. I mean, to get 1 point from that, I mean, it was one of those moves where, when you really want to do it and you're just looking for an excuse, and then you look at some stats, and the stats were like Newcastle conceded the second most crosses down the right hand side, creating chances, conceding chances down the side. And I just thought, I've got to go for this. And yeah,
you did it right at the end as well, because you were settled on.
Oh my God, the story!
Was it like 15,
I forgot about
20
the story.
seconds before? Go on.
Oh, so I wasn't going to do it, and then I just suddenly thought to myself, do you know what? I'm just going to do it, and it was 59. It was 59, but I didn't know how far into 59 it was. So I quickly made the transfer, but then I forgot that Dean was coming in for Eiling. He was my third sub. So my hands were shaking. I had to quickly move Dean in, and it wouldn't have made any difference in the end. But and I thought, imagine that though. You take that -8, and then you end up with a player on the third sub on bench.
Oh my God. What were you doing it that late in the day? I mean, we're not into early transfers. I mean, there's a lot of critics of early transfers, but late transfers, they're not really.
I know. It wasn't on. I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be doing that. That's not BlackBox.
No, it's really not. I mean, I couldn't believe it, because I think you put it on Twitter, didn't you? You'd done it right. I did. Yeah. And I was totally.
And I never normally do moves after I post on Twitter. It was, I just didn't want to miss out on a Dean haul so much, and I just couldn't decide whether it was me kind of pushing to get points when I shouldn't be, or whether it was a good move. And I just thought there's loads of hits being taken this week. I really thought Everton were going to win that game comfortably, so I just went for it. But it didn't work out.
I didn't trust Everton fully, and I was actually worried about getting Calvert-Lewin. So it was Barnes that I was looking at more, and it was almost Barnes that I went to. So looking at my team, I almost went Rafinha to Barnes, and Barnes obviously scored. When he scored early on in that game, I was like, oh, here we go. Az and I both mentioned him. We didn't get him in, and others did. What are we doing? Why didn't we follow our own hunch? But in the end, Rafinha got the assist, and the gap, it wouldn't have been worth it to me, because with the -4, I would have lost points. So it was the right call. And Rafinha continues to, I think he's returned in the last 5 away games. He hasn't done it at home, which I guess you can say that about Leeds to an extent. But he had a good game again. I mean, him and Bamford are clearly, with Harrison's consistent, but Rafinha's got that little bit of spark about. I like him. But obviously, there are other midfielders that we'll see later who are in that bracket who are also, bidding for our attention. So Rafinha and Bamford were the stars. I mean, they did everything that I wanted from them. Bamford, in particular, with a little mention to his fantasy team after the match. And you've been stalking him on Twitter as well, haven't you?
On Instagram, yeah.
On Instagram as well. Did you?
No, I haven't messaged him on Twitter. I've just mentioned. Have I sent him a Twitter? No, maybe I have. Maybe I've sent him. Yeah, I'm just stalking him all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, just have a little message. If you ever fancy coming on, doing a little pod or a little recording or something, it'd be nice to have you on. Now he's mentioned that he plays it and stuff, and he's really into it. It'd be great if we could get him on here, but I think it's probably unlikely.
No, I don't see it. I mean, but it was nice. I love it when footballers talk about their fancy teams, and it was a great performance from him. And
you see the Robertson thing?
No, go on.
So a rumor was going round on the other day that Robertson had taken Mane out of his team, and the last time Robertson took Mane out of his team, Mane didn't play. So the rumor mill started going round, and then lo and behold, Mane has got an injury. So there must have been something there. The question is though, Klopp can't be happy with that, can he? If people are going to start getting wind of injuries and team selections to players, that gives West Ham a bit of an edge, doesn't it?
Well, the thing is, put yourself. There's a little noise at your end. Is that little tapping going on? Is that you? Or sorry, it's coming out on the microphone. I can hear it. It's fine.
Don't know. Do you hear it now?
It's gone now. No, it's gone now. It just keeps coming back and forth. Put yourself in Robertson's shoes though. If he's playing FBL and he knows Mane's out, it's going to be very hard to leave him in, isn't it? So what do you do? I mean, I wonder how long Robertson's going to keep playing for. But I mean, obviously we've got to keep an eye on his team, because it could be crucial to us. I know. I saw it. I did see it Saturday morning. Yeah.
Would you let him play?
I want footballers to play FBL, so I'm not going to say no.
I know you want them to, but should they?
Well, yeah. I'm not going to advise Premier League managers to stop their players playing it, because I think it's a good thing. But obviously, it puts them in a difficult spot, because in that situation, Robertson's looked at it like a proper FBL manager there. He's gone, well, I don't want to keep Mane. He's worth a load of money, and I know he's not going to play. So, yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? So it was a vital clue, though, and it turned out to be the case, didn't it? Yeah. So, very, very interesting turn of it. And I feel sorry for people who have gone Mane, because he, like Barnes, like Dina, looked a really good differential for the game week, but just didn't turn out at all. And Salah, so what do you make of Salah? Because not so long ago, or only recently, we were talking about the heavy hitters letting us down, and Salah was certainly mentioned in the same bracket as Fernandes and Son. And we'll look later at how the value is there elsewhere. But Salah's performance, those two finishes, unbelievable, aren't they?
Yeah, and I wrote an article for Scout saying how I was going to start captaining differential players. And the week I do that, Salah comes back as the heavy hitter that we still be captaining. So sums it up, really. Yeah, I mean, he was great. I didn't think Liverpool played that well until his brilliant 2 goals. I was, I think at half time, the pundits and I were thinking, again, they're just not looking right in that final third. The fullbacks aren't doing enough, aren't stretching it. They're missing Henderson in midfield. Thiago is doing the same thing where he doesn't quite look like he fits. But then it was just brilliant. I mean, the second goal was kind of like vintage Liverpool, wasn't it? Trent just clearing the ball up, a perfect pass, Shaqiri then, and then Salah's lovely little finish in. And it's something they just haven't been doing. His first touch, incredible.
Yeah, just an amazing goal. And also the first goal as well was kind of archetypal Salah goal, cutting in and then curling it into the far post. We've seen him do that many times, but not
You
for
can't
a while.
let him do that. I mean, Moyes must have been fuming at that.
It was almost too easy for him, wasn't it? And the Milner reaction was a classic. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The first half of Liverpool, it looked like, well, if you captain Salah, you'd made an error. Not really, well, I guess, because no other captains came in. Obviously, Gundogan didn't work for us, but second half he delivered. And for those, it was ironic because I was involved in a conversation with Joss and Always Cheating, where he posted something about, well, maybe this is the week to go back, to keep it on Salah or go back to Salah because a lot of people are looking elsewhere, and Salah's always a safe bet. And I agreed. I said, yeah, I think you're right. Game weeks like this, you've got to do it. And lo and behold, he did it and I didn't, and he did well out of it, as did others. So I think there might be a black box lesson there in that when there are other captains in the conversation, it's always pays to just double check that it's not worth going back to a De Bruyne or a Kane or a Salah in that situation when their effective ownership is low. But you don't. I know you've got a policy now, haven't you? And you've given. When I looked at your team, I mean, when I set up the pod tonight, I looked at your team and I'd seen who you've captained. You've clearly got a policy to take some risks with the captaincy now, haven't you?
Yeah, and I mean it's whether that is because I mean it's not just 2 or 3 games that Liverpool have been looking bad, and Fernandes and Salah have been off form. It's a prolonged period, and I think it's whether we think that's going to continue and this was the blip, or whether now it's going to kind of revert back to normal. And I mean, I think what was interesting was the week before last was a crazy week. Massive hits paid off. People taking -8s and ending up sort of 20, 30 points up. And this week just completely reverted back to normal. If you took a big hit like I did, you were punished. You had some of the big hitters coming in, and then they had things like rotation. But you still had like weird results. I mean, that Everton Newcastle game was still a weird result. I'd never expected Leeds to beat Leicester. So it still tells me this is a pretty unpredictable season to try and call. And I just think there is potential to hit some big captains. I mean, if you didn't captain Salah over those 6 game weeks, you're laughing. And okay, people saying, "Oh, I've been patient with Salah." It's like, yeah, but you've missed out on 6 weeks of other picks if you got it right. So, I mean, Salah's never going to be a bad option because he's got the penalties. They're still the best attacking team in the league. But I do still think there are other options that we can consider. And it didn't work this week. It doesn't mean it won't work next week.
Okay, interesting. Let's see if you keep that policy up over the weeks to come. And like I said, a bit of a sneak preview. You've gone quite maverick with the captaincy this week. Maybe not. Quick check in with the great and the good. I had the smallest red arrow I think I've ever had. 108 places I lost.
Nearly a grey.
It's nearly a grey. I mean, never had a grey. I mean, it's very difficult to get that, obviously. But there it is, 108 places. I went down a little bit. Mainly because I didn't take any hits. I mean, I didn't have a spectacular game week, but because I didn't take any hits, I was one of the few in the league. I think that overall there was it 7, 8 managers took hits in that league there, so that's a lot of hits going around. You were the -8, you took the most, and you are hit-tastic at the moment. I think overall now you've lost 36 points to hits, which is that the most ever that you can remember in a season? Must be getting on for that.
It's got to be. I've never taken 2 -8s in a season before. That's pretty big for me. They haven't worked either. not even, I don't think any of my hits have really worked. But I mean, to get a 50,000 rank drop when I've taken a complete fail of a -8 isn't the worst thing in the world. So we move on. I think my team's pretty strong going forward. So I'm kind of happy that I've done it. I just need Everton to perform.
Yeah, but what's notable in the Great and the Good League, thanks to Greyhead for shipping this to us just before the show, we turned it round, and it's important because I've gone up to third, and that means I'm chasing Fabio Borges, who is how many points ahead of me? 33. So that's doable. General is 40 points ahead. Not as big a gap as I thought, so you never know. General, he made a mistake with Bamford. Maybe he's rattled now. Maybe he's,
You rattled him, Mark.
Mind games coming in. I can't play mind
control.
Mind games with General is going to be very difficult. He's far too solid. But Magnus Carlsen, that's the big name that I've overtaken. And I did say to you that I refused point blank to message Magnus and try and ask him to come on the show, because I just think I'm not comfortable with the idea of approaching the #1 chess player of the world and asking him to come on a little podcast. But you're adamant I've got to. And I said to you, okay, if I go above him, I'll drop him a DM. And
you've got a direct line. You've got a direct line to him. He follows you, you follow him. It's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and he might be watching now. He might be watching right now. And if he is, then
please come on, Magnus.
A message is coming your way to see if he'll come on. Maybe not in the season, maybe in the off season, but we'd love to have you on. But yes, I did promise I'm 1 point ahead of him, so I will send a DM to Magnus and ask if he'll come on, just for you, just to make your day. It will. I really want to see you, with Magnus in the room. I think you'd be so nervous.
I'll be so shy.
Well, you would be. Let's look at the template for the top 10K. We haven't checked in on this for quite a while. Gameweek 17 was the last time we looked at this. So there's some changes, not surprisingly, but still. Some of the old names still there. Martinez McCarthy, still the goalkeeper choice there, you notice has. But changes at the back. Man City, look at the Man City invasion in defence.
I know, three Man City. I mean, there's 5 Man City players on the template. So it shows, obviously you can't have 5. So it shows that there is a real difference in the way people are going. I was really surprised to see Sterling coming into the top 10K template.
Well, he had 60.2 effective ownership in game week 20, presumably because of the captaincy. So his ownership overall is probably lower than that. But I just don't see it myself. I mean, you think that with 3 of the defenders, so you've got Cancelo, Chilwell, Justin, Stones, and Diaz is the template defence. And with those 3 defenders there, I was surprised to see Sterling in there as an attacking option in the top 10K template as well. Obviously, in the midfield, Son, Salah, who were there before, Fernandes, who were there before, and Gundogan and Sterling, the new entries with recent form and fixtures going City's way. Front 3, do you want to talk through that? I mean, one change in that Kane dropped out, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's the front 3 that I've got and I'm happy with. I think Antonio, Calvert-Lewin and Bamford is a really strong front 3. I think you've also got Watkins in there, who I know a lot of people have got, who's doing well. Lacazette, I thought was a good option, but has now got picked up an injury, I think. And Ings as well, who was really unlucky not to score against. He did score. It was, the bum of cash keeping him offside. So yeah, really, really. I think there are some sort of fairly decent striking options now, but just none are really as consistent as Antonio and Bamford seem to be. Who I back. Calvert-Lewin, I think, has got potential to really go back to his early season form, but we need to see something from him against Leeds.
Yeah. We're going to look at the forwards in a bit when we look at attacking data. It's quite interesting that there is a clear template there, but there are some names, and we mentioned Wilson threatening to break into that. I want to talk about the double game week situation because there's been a development tonight, and there's a guy out in the community. I don't know if you've heard of him, Ben Krellin.
Never heard of him.
It's only a small account.
He dabbles? He dabbles,
and I want to give him a little bit of, because he's only got, I think, is it 100? 100,000 followers. That was it. Yes, Ben Krellin, 100,000 followers. Congratulations, well deserved.
Amazing,
that milestone. And the reason why he's got 100,000 followers is because he works tirelessly to try and clear up the double game week and blank situation. Now, this is a chart which has been shown on many podcasts or many streams recently, so we thought I'd jump on board. This is a bandwagon, I'm on it, basically. So just to reveal, I think it's tonight, you were saying as there was a bit of news out of City with their double game week in game week 24, is that right?
Yeah, well, it looks like Man City have tweeted a schedule which includes a game in game week 24. So it looks like they've all but confirmed that they will have a game
Yeah.
in 24. According to Ben, it's either going to be Everton or Southampton. Ben isn't sure which one that it's going to be. So either game I think is pretty good for their attacking players. Obviously, Southampton I think is better for defenders, but yeah, it looks like there's going to be there's very likely, very likely going to be a double game for Man City. So if you haven't got Triple City now, I think it's probably the time to really think about that and get one in or
Yeah,
two.
so they've got Burnley and Liverpool 22-23, and then it looks like they're going to have Tottenham, and we're hearing it's Everton. So Tottenham Everton's not amazing in
The
terms of
chat,
the quality of position, but go on. There's
sorry, the chat is saying that there's a shadowed image of the Everton logo in the Man City schedule. So
a
it's
shadowed image. What's going
a
on here?
shadowed. I don't know what that means, but that's what they're saying.
Okay, so what
So
is
there
it?
seems to be the general idea that it's going to be Everton away for
So it's
City.
quite interesting because really that's only teasing FPL managers because obviously Man City fans will want to know where they're playing, but to be honest, it's not not, they can't go to the game, so it's not going to affect them too much because it'll be I'll watch it on telly. But so really that's almost like that's a tease deliberately aimed at us. I'll take that from City. So it does look like it's Everton then. So Tottenham Everton double game week in game week 24, which means Everton will play Fulham and Man City at home. And City will play Spurs and Everton away. Spurs at home, Everton away. So that's interesting. A double game week 24. We knew there was more to come. Now we know, of course, this chart also shows the double game weeks to come, or the potential double game weeks to come in game week 26, based on the FA Cup results to come, and also looking forward the potential blanks in 29. So we've known about that for a while. We don't know the ins and outs of that, and Ben's chart doesn't really reveal that. It just gives us some clues. But what's clear now is we've got a double game week before that, game week 24. So as rightly says, get on City. And I guess, Everton, if you've got Calvert-Lewin, I know he disappointed against Newcastle, but immediate
You've got a hold.
compensation. Yeah.
Yeah,
He knows
I mean
what
that's
to
the
do.
thing. I mean, I took this -8, but two of the I bought in Dean and Calvert-Lewin, so I've already got 5 players in place for that double game week. So one
Yeah.
more and I've got 6, and I've got a strong contingent. I could even think about the bench boost. I could think about triple captain. Yeah, so I'm feeling in. The -8. I always kind of knew that Everton were going to have this game coming up at some point. So the -8 did feel a little bit like it was less risky because it would mean one less transfer down the line at some point. So yeah, I think Dean's a strong option. Rodriguez as well, I'd be considering, and then Calvert-Lewin, decent front three. I don't know if Josh King signed for Everton.
A lot of talk
I don't know
about
what
him
that's going to
today.
do for. Yeah, I don't know what that's going to do for Calvert-Lewin.
Deadline still
Help
going
him.
on, of course. So we'll pick that up. Tomorrow we'll hear more about the transfers, and obviously we'll pick that up before game week 23. But yeah, it's just interesting tonight that broke. We'll look more at Ben's chart as the game weeks go by. There's lots more to explain from that. We won't go into it tonight. Just the message at the moment. Get ready for that Everton Man City double game week by the looks of it. Nice tease for Man City, by the way. Let's look at some data as we normally do. This is data for teams, defence over the season, and also the last 4 matches. Not the last 4 game weeks, it's their last 4 matches. Just some things I wanted to bring out of this. I've highlighted Arsenal over the season. They've been creeping up that table. So in terms of minutes per expected goal conceded, it's 77.3 for them, sitting 5th now overall. They've had 5 clean sheets in the last 6 matches. 1 goal they've conceded. A record that matches Man City. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's unbelievable, and they are flying under the radar because everyone's so set on City defenders. I mean, Arsenal's run as well isn't particularly good, but they've got Wolves next, which is a good fixture. So I mean, Holding, I think at what 4.8 looks a really solid pick. And then you've got Rudiger as well, who we'll probably mention a bit later, playing for Chelsea now, who's 4.5 and is starting. So you've got some actual good, like sub 5 million centre backs playing for what looks like resolute sides.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
Chelsea are up there. If you look at the data over the last 4 matches, that Chelsea are second.
Holding's 4.5. I thought it was
Yeah,
more than that.
Holding's 4.5,
Wow.
and so is Rudiger as well. So a couple of really good options in that bracket there amongst Chelsea and Arsenal defences who, are still strong. Chelsea's still strong. I mean, obviously with Tuchel there, the jury's still out on how they're going to be defensively. He's changed the system. He's gone back to wing backs, and we'll talk about that in a bit. We'll touch on Alonso, of course. But I've also highlighted a couple of other teams. And what's interesting, Villa have dipped a bit. I mean, they've played over the last four. They're like the fifth bottom ranked defence. So they've conceded expected goal every 55.8 minutes, a chance every 5.5 minutes. And put that into perspective, that's only a little bit better than West Brom, who are 5.4. So Villa's defence has been tested recently, and they have, over the last four, it's been Man City, Burnley, Newcastle, Southampton. So, okay, Man City might skew it a bit, but Burnley, Newcastle, Southampton, they've provided more of a test than you'd expect. So, but Martinez has been fantastic, hasn't he? Still for you, so he's going nowhere, is he?
No way. And we're going to do the watch list a bit later, but when it comes to goalkeeper, it's like there's no one I want. Martinez is. He's looking like he's getting a slot up there.
Really? I mean, 10 clean sheets now over the season.
It's unbelievable. It really is. And I mean, the saves he makes are fantastic. The authority he's got and the presence he's got in that area just gives confidence to the whole team. Really lucky, really lucky to keep the clean sheet against Southampton, and he got the bonus points and the saves. It was a 10-point performance, reminiscent of Pope. He's kind of this year. I mean, Pope is still doing pretty good things, but Martinez is like the new Pope. The new Pope. That's an interesting description.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be neck and neck between those two at the top of the FPL ratings. I think they're going to be the top two keepers, hands down. I wouldn't expect anyone to get near them at the moment.
Do you feel like you made a mistake selling him,
Martinez? Yeah, possibly. I mean, Pope's still got a decent run up to Gameweek 25, which is when I'll be wildcarding. So I knew that it was only going to be a short spell before I could change my keepers again. I don't like to make goalkeeper transfers.
No, that's the thing, isn't
regular, but with wildcards, that's when you do it. So I looked at the fixtures from 16, from when I did the wildcard and when I got Pope and Johnson in, to 25. And Johnson and Pope had decent run between them. They alternated okay. So I was all right with it. I think as a differential, Pope could still prove, interesting, but we'll see. I mean, Martinez probably will be coming back in 25 with the wild card, depending on how the double game weeks come together, of course. Just another mention here in this data: the last four matches, Leeds right at the bottom now. So they've conceded a big chance every 40 minutes over the last four matches, a chance conceded every 5.4, and minutes per expected goal conceded 50.1, lowest in the division over the last four. So again, if you're holding Calvert-Lewin, don't be too worried about the fact you got him in, even if you did get him in for a hit and sold Bamford, because there's a good chance he's going to cause issues for that Leeds defence, isn't there?
Yeah, and when Leicester scored that first goal quite early on, we'd both been talking about Barnes. I did a tweet just before the deadline saying I really think Barnes is going to go off on one here. I didn't bring him into my own team. He scores straight away. And I thought, this is it. Late rise had him captained, and obviously he's just behind me in the great and the good league. And obviously I want him to do well, but not too well. I can't go down to bottom in that. So yeah, and I was worried. But then Leeds, ended up really kind of. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I talk about shocks of the season. I mean, I just did not think Leeds would win that game at all. And as soon as they went 1-0 down, I honestly thought, this is just going to be a comfortable Leicester demolition job. And it was anything but. They kind of continue to surprise. But yeah, I still think defensively, they still look suspect. Cooper and Strauch and Eiling bombing forward and stuff. There's ways that teams can get at them. So they beat Everton 1-0 earlier in the season. But I think Everton will get a goal against them at least.
Yeah, Rafinha scored, didn't he? It's his first goal he scored at Goodison Park. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting game. That surely plenty of goals in that. I mean, Everton were disappointing, but I'd like to think against this Leeds defence, which according to this data remains obliging.
Yeah, again.
I know.
Midfielder. I mean,
fantastic, isn't he?
We both went for Eiling, didn't we?
We did, and looking back, that was clearly a mistake. But Dallas is, he's not going to get you defensive return, so you're always hoping he gets you something. But obviously, in an attacking team, he's got that opportunity. He was getting forward a lot. Let's look at attacking data. And here, I mean, I've highlighted Leeds, who are slipping down a bit. I mean, they were top two. They were second over the season to Liverpool, but obviously with with Man City going from strength to strength, they're now up into second place in terms of minutes per expected goal. Liverpool still out in front, 48.5 minutes per expected goal. City on 51.4. Leeds have dropped down to 5th on 57.4. So there has been a bit of a dip recently. And there was a lot of talk about, that'll be the Leeds fatigue, second half of the season. They're going to a lot of talk about that.
It's mentioned all the time, doesn't it? It's either Bielsa's a genius, Leeds are going to be tired, Bamford can't shoot. It's always the same like things, isn't it? But I mean, yeah, there is a big Leeds like narrative bias, but I have to say the games they play in are generally tend to be the most entertaining. So they're a good addition.
Yeah, I mean, it is surprising. If you look at the data of the last 4 matches, they're 84.1 minutes per expected goal. West Brom beat that. An expected goal every 81.8 minutes. So it's surprising, isn't it, that, well, two things, I suppose, that Leeds have dropped off that much and that West Brom are mid-table over the last 4 matches with expected goals. So
Pereira finally coming good. I tipped him at the start, didn't I? But taken him 20 weeks to start delivering. But he's an interesting option. If West Brom are going to have any chance of staying up, they're going to need him to keep delivering. Midfield slots are precious.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I like him.
He's one of the names that we'll pick out in that value.
Look at Everton. Why Everton
I know.
Bottom mark?
So this is it. While Leeds are at the bottom defensively over the last 4, they're up against a team, Everton, who are bottom for attacking data over the last 4.
That is unbelievable. Below Burnley.
Yeah. 162.2 minutes per expected goal over the last 4 matches. They've only had a shot every 10.6 minutes. There's only 3 teams worse than that: West Brom, Palace and Burnley. So they're right down there with the relegation battlers and Palace. I mean, Palace, I wouldn't say a relegation battlers, not yet anyway. But yeah, it's surprising to see Everton slump. And so what are we going to get in that game at Ellen Road? A very weak defence that gives up opportunities against an attack which has created very little. So
the immovable object versus the unstoppable force, but the complete opposite. It's like the blunt force and the rubbish object. That's the best I can do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be 0-0, surely.
No, and the thing is, I think we're all expecting Everton to start creating chances again now that Rodriguez and Dino are back and Richarlison's back as well. We expect Calvert-Lewin to kick on. And they've got the double game week, it seems. So, we're not going to lose heart with Everton, but it is surprising. We look at the numbers, how they've slipped recently. So, one to keep an eye on. Let's move on and look at some players then. So we're going to do quite a bit on players in tonight's show. We're going to look, as I said, about some value options. But what I've highlighted there are the 4 strikers you mentioned: Antonio, Calvert-Lewin, Bamford and Watkins, who for me are now the template. Most teams are looking at 3 of those 4, aren't they? I think that's fair to say. And at the moment, Antonio has leapt ahead of the pack. He's top for minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, 4th overall on 126.7 minutes. Calvert-Lewin's still hanging in there despite Everton's decline. He's still there in second. Bamford third on 144.2, and Watkins, who's bottom of the 4, on 164.9 minutes per expected goal involvement. But recent form has been good. Do you see anyone breaking into that group? Do you see that quartet being settled for a few game weeks, or do you see other names coming into it?
No, I can't really. I think it's such a strong. I mean, I know Bamford was sold by quite a lot of people this week. General sold him, for example.
Yeah.
I was close. It's only because I had Che Adams in my team that I didn't sell him. The Bamford to Calvert-Lewin move was really popular. I can see the logic of it because Bamford, getting subbed at 59 minutes, difficult game against Leicester. I think though with that performance, he's kind of solidified himself now. Unless something happens until now and the end of the season, I think he's pretty much nailed on. He's too big a risk not to go with, given how Leeds attack and the fact that he can deliver against the bigger sides. So I don't think he's going anywhere. Antonio is I think the best striker to own in the game at the moment. West Ham are playing well. He's so ridiculously good up front. He just bullies teams. I'm surprised they didn't use him to better effect against Liverpool, because he didn't really have too many opportunities to really do anything amazing against them. They were doing things like playing short corners, which not really understanding. And they did a corner and it was long and it went in. I thought it was Souček. Did you?
Dawson looks too much
my
like
God.
Souček, and when you've got Souček bench, you just don't want to see that, do you?
And the commentator said Souček as well.
Did he?
And yeah, I think he said
Wasn't
like,
BT again, was
Souček
it?
or something like that. Yeah,
wasn't the silver guy, was it? Oh no, dear.
Of course it was BT. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but I love Antonio, and then it's the third spot, isn't it? I mean, I think Calvert-Lewin and Watkins. I think with Watkins, you're getting a striker who is getting lots of chances, but is struggling a bit to convert them and really make the most of the chance he gets from Grealish. But he does, every time I watch them, he seems like he's probably got quite a big haul coming. Whereas with Calvert-Lewin, you're more hoping that Everton sort of address the slump and come out of it. So you've got two ways to go there, really. I like them both.
Well, this is it. If you look at the data over the last four, Bamford and Calvert-Lewin are nowhere to be seen. I mean, Leeds have only played 3 matches in the last 4 game weeks. That isn't last 4 matches, by the way. This is last 4 game weeks. Calvert-Lewin's only played 2 matches. Everton have played 3 times, but he's only played 2 of them. Antonio right out in front over the last 4 game weeks, 86.2 minutes per expected goal involvement. So he's still up there. Watkins has done well, 141.2. But then you've got to go, Bamford's on 247.4 minutes per expected goal involvement, and Calvert-Lewin 344 minutes. Calvert-Lewin's had 3 shots in 2 matches. Bamford's had 3 shots in 3 matches. So both of them have been low performers in terms of chances over their last 2 or 3 games, whereas Antonio and Watkins have looked stronger. So it is quite close because, like you say, Calvert-Lewin's got the double game week now. He's got the service, should improve. So a lot of movement went his way. Antonio, I think, like you say, very much out in front, but it's close between Watkins and Bamford, I think. But I think
there's one player that's not mentioned on that list though, and that is Wilson.
Yeah.
Because I mean, do you know how many points Wilson's got this season? It's pretty unbelievable. He's on 110 points this season at like just over the halfway stage in a Newcastle team that has been absolutely awful for the vast majority of the season. Yeah. Like if he hits 200 points this season, that's got to be like the most incredible return for a striker playing for a team like Newcastle ever. And I wouldn't really back against him doing it because he just seems he's either playing well and getting points, or he's not playing well and still managing to kind of get points. And if Newcastle actually manage to find a bit of form, then he should continue to deliver. And I know you don't want him because you vow not to watch Newcastle with a striker.
I'm coming round to it. I mean, I think they're pressing higher, they're winning the ball higher up in the field. They've got Fraser doing bits now. Obviously, Sam Maximan's coming back. I mean, he hasn't played a full game yet, but he's looked really good when he's come on. So I'm suddenly thinking, well, Newcastle might be worth considering. And in this same period, so over the last 4 game weeks, he's matched Antonio for shots in the box. He's had 10 shots in the box. All of his efforts have been in the box. So he has, he's producing numbers now, which is right up there with the best we can find. So I agree with you. I think Wilson could break into that. I mean, let's have a quick look at Newcastle's fixtures. I don't think they're spectacular by any means, but they're not bad. I mean, they've got 3 good home games in the next 6, Crystal Palace, Southampton, and Wolves. And then added to that, they've got West Brom away. So they've got 4 of the next 6, which are pretty decent. Chelsea and Man United away as well in 24 and 25. But of course, we've got to consider the double game week situation going forward. But 22 and 23, the next 2 game weeks, Palace and Southampton, if you didn't get on Calvert-Lewin and you're in the market for a striker, Wilson's
got to be Wilson.
Wilson's got to be in the reckoning, absolutely.
There's people in the chat saying, should I start Wilson or should I bench him for like Watkins? Like, obviously play him. You've got like potentially the most informed striker in the league playing against one of the worst defences. You've got to play him in that game.
Yeah, and it's just his performance against Everton was the best I've seen him this season. And Newcastle, like I say, we've got to monitor where they go from here because you're right. I mean, I wasn't going to consider Wilson because I don't enjoy watching Newcastle play, but I have enjoyed watching them play the last game and a half. So perhaps there's more to come from them. I hope so. I actually feel that Bruce gets some unfair criticism given what he does with what he's got. And I want to see Sam Maximan fit and Fraser both in the same team. See what happens. You're not sold. You don't like Sam Maximan, do you?
No, well, not Sam. I was a bit more about Bruce.
Right.
I think he is a very, very, very negative manager, and I think you only have to listen to Newcastle fans talking about him and the team selections he makes and the players he brings in and all that kind of stuff. But you have to say Wilson was a very, very, very good signing by any stretch, and without him, they would be in real trouble this season.
Yeah, I think Bruce knows that he's got to change the way they play. I think he knows that, yeah, okay, I can shore things up, I can keep it tight, and that might keep me in the division. But I think he realises now that won't be enough to keep him in his job. Even if they stay up, if they're not playing attractive football, if Newcastle fans don't see the kind of football or the signs of the kind of football they want, he could still go easily. So I think he's realised now that it's like, well, actually keeping Newcastle up isn't enough. Now, some would argue, well, it should be, because what do you expect from Newcastle? Perhaps they don't have the resources other teams have got. But I think the penny's dropped with Bruce. I think he's realised that, well, not only have I got to keep this team up, I've got to play some attacking football and entertain. And so maybe I'm wrong, but it does feel like that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like Spurs. I think. I mean, if I was a Spurs fan, I'd be looking at Tottenham and thinking, they're desperate for a trophy, aren't they? So obviously Mourinho's there to win them something, and he's still in the cup and stuff. But if Mourinho doesn't win a trophy and they finish outside the top four, and they're playing the style that they play, which is so unbelievably painful to watch, like it's just like any Spurs game is just immediately on my list of games I don't particularly want to watch anymore. I only really watched them the other day because it was Brighton, and it ended up being a great game as a Brighton fan. But you've got to be thinking, is it worth it? Is it worth us just going desperately for one trophy when we play like this every week? I wouldn't like it as a fan.
I think it's got a shelf life. That I think there's Spurs fans are reluctantly backing Mourinho because they want to win trophies, they want silverware. But I think you're right. I think the way they're playing, the way they're set up, the mentality more than anything is a way. I mean, and with Kane out, I mean we were worried about Son without Kane, and we were right to, judging by the performance at Brighton, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I get slated on here for my anti-Spurs bias. Like the bet, you probably still haven't paid it, but like all around that time with people, just mention that. I'm just going to keep mentioning it, Mark, until you pay it. You're physically keeping money from charity.
It's not. I'm not a miser trying to hold on for every few quid I've got. I just haven't got round to it. I will sort it out. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You didn't back Spurs then, and I was behind them. I kind of thought they had more. They had a chance of staying in the top four, but at the moment they're going a bit wayward, aren't they? And obviously
it's just bad. Yeah, it's Kane's injury, but it's not just Kane's injury. The signs have been there for weeks and weeks and weeks that they just don't have that cutting edge, and the way he plays is just negative. And it has been, it's Mourinho. It's been like this. Look, all the clubs he's been at for the last sort of 8-9 years. Like, look what he did to United. I mean, I really think Van Gaal went in. I didn't really like the way Van Gaal got them playing, but I really think Mourinho cost United a lot in terms of their identity and in terms of what fans wanted to see them play. And I think Solskjaer, he gets a lot of stick, but the fact he's brought that identity back to United, exciting games again, pace up front, like he's got to get so much credit for that. He's brought the fun back to the club, and I think Spurs really did sell their soul when they got Mourinho in. I'm just not a fan. Everyone knows. I won't keep badgering on about it.
Pretty harsh. I mean, if you wanted to kind of lose that tag as a Tottenham hater, you haven't done much about it there.
It's not Spurs. It's just Mourinho. I just can't stand him. I just think what he does to clubs is just I know poison.
Is Jose in the chat? Not tonight, but normally he's there. So we'll see. Right. I want to look at this data here, which is looking back over the last 7 game weeks. And what we've got here is a table showing the top point scorers over those 7 game weeks, and also minutes per points. And I've highlighted the players over 7 million. And it's ridiculous, isn't it? Just look how few players, and this is all positions, look how few players are highlighted in that table. There's only 5 players out of the 30 who cost more than 7 million. And it just shows you. So you've got to look to the other table, which is where some of the bigger names are. These are template names: Grealish, Sterling, Kane, De Bruyne, Salah, Son. They're all outside the top 30 point scorers over the last 7 game weeks. And this is despite Salah's haul just now, recently, in the last game week, rather. So it kind of, Gundogan is obviously in a lot of teams now. Saka, less so. Stones and Diaz, yes, in a lot of teams. Barnes, that's a player we talked about last week and we need to consider. But it's really surprising, isn't it? Because when we lost De Bruyne and when we lost Kane and Vardy, we were all about, well, I've got to spend this money. But actually, this data shows that perhaps not. Have we got a problem with player prices? Because we often say this with the captaincy, don't we? It's like we captain a player because they're 11 million, so they've got to be my captain. I'm not going to captain someone like Gundogan who's 5 million. We're coming round to that idea, but only after Gundogan has done superhuman stats and data to kind of sway us, right? So I do think there is an issue here that perhaps we've got to break down this stigma attached to cheaper players and start questioning the players like Fernandes, Salah, Kane, and so on, who perhaps are there on a bit of reputation, and the price tag just keeps them in our minds as players that we need to have, when actually perhaps we don't.
Yeah, I mean, not even. I mean, I think it's 6 out of 7 of these top players. How many weeks is this over? The last 4?
7
4?
game weeks. 7. So it's
7.
So since game week 15,
Jesus
I think.
Christ.
Yeah.
So 6 of the 7 players of the last 7 game weeks are 6 million or under. I mean, that is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you look, the reason why you pay premium prices for players is to get that reliability and to think, if I don't know who to captain this week, I'm going to stick it on Salah and he's going to get returns. 6 blanks in a row. Fernandes, all these blanks in a row. It really is unbelievable. And I think it's because there does seem to be a less of a gap between. It's like COVID has been this kind of leveler, and teams like West Ham and Villa and Southampton for a spell were doing really well, and Everton for a spell were doing really well, and Leicester are right up there. There's less, you've got the consistency of City at the back, but up front they're not scoring goals like for fun every week. Liverpool are struggling, Chelsea have been struggling, United have been struggling. So there's no real consistency in attack from any team at the moment, and that's where you look to get your points from a captain. So I definitely think there's a reason for us to be considering these players for the captaincy, and it's what I'm looking to do. I think Spurs v West Brom, it's going to be very, very hard to back against Son, who is going to be the highest captain that week by far.
Game week 23, yeah.
Yeah, but only because there's so few options. That United are playing Everton, City are playing Liverpool. There doesn't seem to be much kind of wiggle room around there. But outside of that, I really am looking to attack the captain and be a bit different with them. And it might go wrong, but the history so far, the last 7 weeks, suggests that it might be a good call.
Yeah, just for those listening on the podcast, Gundogan is top of our table, 58 points in the last 7 game weeks, 9.6 minutes per point. Saka second, 52, 9.8.
What do you think of Gundogan with Jesus in the team?
Yeah, I mean, there is, there's the suggestion and there's data to back this up. That I was going to look at that initially. I didn't have time to turn it around, so we'll look at that, perhaps next show. That when Jesus plays, when Pep has a regular forward there, Gundogan drops off in terms of his opportunities in the box. But I watched the game, and obviously when you own Gundogan, you're watching him far more closely, and he was still making runs into the box on a regular basis. He was still, like for Jesus' goal, he was actually in a better position than. So when Torres knocks it across to Jesus, it's rare to see a ball knocked across to that area, because normally the player's blocked by the keeper or defender, whereas Gundogan was hanging back in the perfect spot to convert, but Torres went for Jesus instead. So although Gundogan, I don't think he even had a shot in the game.
I remember that. I saw that.
Yeah, but I do think that he was still getting into good areas. So I didn't watch it and go, well, his role has changed again. He's not doing the things he was doing at West Brom. It just with Jesus there, it must make a difference, because they've got someone occupying that centre forward role. So you'd expect him to be the first person that wide players look for when they look up. So I'm not surprised there's a hit there when Jesus is there, but not so much when I'm thinking I'm going to panic and Gundogan out, and as soon as De Bruyne is fit, I'm getting De Bruyne back, because I think there's still going to be a couple of weeks.
5.8.
I know. I don't think we can. I mean, even when De Bruyne and Sterling, are double game week options, it will be tough to get rid of Gundogan, given what we've seen now over quite a sustained period. So it's 9 game weeks, I think, where he's been registering this data. But obviously, if Jesus starts on a regular basis and there's enough of a sample of data to convince us that there's a drop off, then we've got to take notice perhaps. But I'm not panicked yet. So yeah, 3 of the top 4 City players, Stones and Diaz, 47 points each. Herrera, there's your man, the West Brom midfielder, 46 points in the last 7 game weeks. Barnes on 46 as well. Souček 44, Lacazette 44, and then you've got the first of the big heavy hits, Fernandes on 43. So yeah, perhaps this is an outlier. Perhaps this period of the season is not going to be typical of what we see from now on. But it's enough to make us question our decisions now when it comes to transfers and captaincy about, well, why are we always attracted to the bigger price player? Expectation is greater, and so we think that they're more likely to return. And normally that is the case. I mean, I think that's a good rule of thumb, but recent evidence suggests we're perhaps being a bit narrow-minded.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute key part of our season, because I don't think we've ever seen in any years of playing FPL this reduction of premium picks. So this few players that we could genuinely consider over 10 million, say, because at the moment it's Fernandes, it's Salah, it's maybe Mane, it's maybe Sterling. That's it. There isn't any more. In previous seasons we've had loads of players to consider, and the pool has been dwindling for a couple of years. I think after Hazard left, that's when we kind of thought, oh wow, there's actually no premium players at Chelsea anymore. Their most expensive player was Pulisic, I think. He was like 7.5. It was, gone to the days of Drogba and Lampard and Hazard and all these guys. So, if the pool is going down to that low amount of people, instead of having sort of 4 or 5 potential players to captain in a week, we've now got 2. And if those teams aren't looking as good as they have been previously, then I think you have to start casting the wet a bit wider. The wet a bit wider. Did I say wet? The net a bit wider.
Close,
These are the gins.
Yeah. Got the whole bottle there.
I'll be the gins. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm looking to cast the net a bit wider.
Well, it's going to make for an interesting time.
Considering these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it just surprised me when I saw that, and the number of defenders in this table as well. There's a lot of defensive players. There's a lot of keepers in there. There's defenders in there. I haven't added up exactly how many defenders, but just at first glance, it looks like almost half the list of defensive players. Well, and who would have thought that earlier in the season when we were like, oh, the clean sheets, we're never going to get any of those again. Yeah.
I know, yeah. I mean, you called it right at the start. I think you went, we both went for at the back quite early on. I bailed in it quite early because I thought, there's too many goals going in. You've always been an advocate that the defences would start to solidify. And I think we did one of our 3rd or 4th podcast was about how the stats suggested there was a big overperformance of goals. So yeah, massive credit to you for that. But I mean, the thing is with captaincy, and we'll talk about my captain later, but with captaincy, you're looking for reliability. If you captained a player who got 6-7 points every week for the season, I think you take that, because we get so many blanks, we get so many things, but having a reliable captain every week can really push you up the ranks. And just look at City every week. It's just absolutely crazy. If you'd captained Diaz every week for the last 7 or 8 weeks, your rank would be soaring.
That is true. I mean, it's interesting the way you say that, is because I always look at the captaincy and go, who is most likely to get double figures?
Same.
I never say, who's going to get me 6 points? Because you almost want your captain, you want to, I mean, it's about your mentality as an FPL manager. My mentality was go for the Hollywood pass, go for the big score, right? Don't play it safe and go for beige upside chaser, as Joe put into Twitter this week, which I love that. I mean, I think we're always tempted to go, well, who's going to get me double figures? So that's why we're drawn to Salah, Son, Fernandes, right? Because we think they've got the holes in them. We're not going to go, I'm going to go John Stones or Ruben Diaz, because they're going to, at least they're at 6 points, and they might just get me 9 if they get 3 bonus points, because that's almost not enough. We want more. But it might be the wrong approach, because for the last look at Salah rather, 20.4 minutes per point.
Yeah,
really
I think previously though you've picked Salah and you've picked Fernandes and stuff because, as Luke always says, they've got that insurance of they're not playing particularly well, but they hit a penalty, they hit a free kick and something like that. So that almost seems like they're going to get you 5 or 6 points more. But with that not really happening and it being a bit more kind of, I don't know, temperamental as to whether they get the huge hauls, actually just going for that safe Man City pick every week does seem does seem logical. It's just because Diaz is the one really. If you're going to adopt that approach, Diaz is because Cancelo could be in and out of the team, Stones, Laporte's back, and all that, but Diaz is just there every week. So if you want to be really boring, the beige upside chaser pick has got to be Diaz.
Yeah, I agree, but it's captain. It just
Oh,
feels
yeah,
wrong, doesn't it? It's like,
it does.
I mean, I think we've got to. I am going to be trying to change my thought process a bit. My captaincy choices are still based on fixtures, right? They're still looking at, and that's why I went Gundogan, because he had the better fixture than Salah at West Ham. I mean, Salah at West Ham's defence went into that game as the second-ranked defence over the last 4. That didn't look like an easy game, and it wasn't, but Salah got the goals, right? And it's frustrating, so I tipped 2-0 Liverpool. So in my head, I was thinking, well, if we're going to win 2-0, Salah's got to get something. So I don't know why I didn't go down that process, but I just fancied Gundogan because of his performance at West Brom, obviously. So I think we've got to try and think differently about the captaincy and bear what we're looking at here, this data in mind, in that don't let price skew our thinking too much at this current time, because if you didn't do that over the last 3 or 4 game weeks, you'd have done pretty well. So it's food for thought. Let's look at our watch list. We're bringing these back now. These are the players that we're looking at for future game weeks. And, they're not in any particular order, in alphabetical order, but we're looking at them by position. And like you said at the top of the show, you haven't got a single goalkeeper you're looking at. You're happy with Martinez, and there's no chance you change it. Obviously, as we get closer to the wild card, which I presume you're going to play in 25, that might change. But right now, there's no other option for you. That's how you see it.
Am I going to wild card in 25? Is that what I'm doing?
I don't know, but it's a kind of like
God.
Majority of managers are, well, the popular strategy is going to be to wild card into 25 for the double in 26. Interesting. Then you're not planning that?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest. I've only seen Ben's spreadsheet tonight, so I don't really know what I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think I did put on the list. You could stick Areola and Sanchez on there as like if I was looking to free up some money or something like that. But nah, goalkeeper, I'm more than happy with Martinez. I'm not. Yeah. He's the only one for me.
Yeah, well, I've got McCarthy in there because of the double game week. I thought there was a chance they would have the double game week with City, but obviously we found out just before we went on air that it's likely to be Everton. So that's not the case now. But Sanchez, I think it's 4 consecutive clean sheets, isn't it, for Brighton? He's been very, he's done incredibly well since he came into the team. And the thing about Brighton is they've got that kind of Burnley and Nick Pope situation with their defence at the moment. If we go back to the defensive data, I think if we look here, Brighton over the last 4, they conceded a chance every 8.8 minutes, but a big chance every 90 minutes. So only 1 big chance per match over the last 4. But they're conceding shots. So Sanchez always in the mix then for bonus points, particularly because he'll have shots to save, but hopefully won't concede, which is the way it's been in recent game weeks. So Sanchez could be worth a look if you're really shopping for a keeper. Defensively, let's talk about Alonso because he's highlighted and he's in both our watch lists. It was a shock, wasn't it, seeing him back? Just did not expect it. What do you make of this? I mean, it's almost like Tuchel's going, right, I want to take a look at everybody. I'm going to shuffle it about.
I love it. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, he's come in and no one's safe. I think that's the message it's awful really for FPL managers because I don't think we can really consider anyone at the moment until kind of a more settled side establishes. But I think in terms of Chelsea, I think it's kind of what they needed. And if you're playing wing backs, there's only one wing back. The king, the lord of the wing backs is Alonso. Come on, you're not gonna put anyone else there. So it's great to see him back. I mean, if you've got Chilwell, I think you have to sell him. I think if you've got Alonso coming in, scoring a goal, keeping a clean sheet, the system's working. I think there's way too much risk now with Chilwell.
What's the theory here then? Why did he play Chilwell in the first? Because he dropped Reece James to the bench, played Hudson-Odoi at wing back on the right, and he kept him in. And then there was, I think Chilwell got subbed, and Chilwell was almost like incredulous that he was getting subbed, wasn't he, in that first game against Wolves? And whether there was a bit of attitude there, I don't know. We haven't worked out what's going on yet because it's only 2 games into the manager's new. He's only been there 2 matches so far.
I think it's him saying no one's safe. I don't care that you were bought for 50 million, 60 million, whatever it was. I'll stick Marcus Alonso in. He wasn't let on the team bus because he had a falling out with Lampard. No one's. I'll bring Rudiger back. Okay, there's rumours that he's pissed off everyone in the Chelsea camp. I don't care. He's starting every game now. I don't know. It's exciting management that could ruin them. But against Burnley, I don't think I've ever seen a more dominant performance. I don't think Burnley had a shot all game, did they? It just completely outplayed them in every way.
And it was brilliant to see Alonso with the immediate return. And if he comes back, if he is an option again, he's one of my. Just seeing him again playing and scoring for Chelsea, it reminded me how much of a favourite he is of mine.
Yeah.
Because I love having defenders who offer that attacking threat. And there is no one better than Alonso. Because I remember that game at Arsenal when he was effectively in the 6-yard box most of the time.
That's exactly what I remember him from.
And
I'll never forget they got the ball down the right, they crossed it in, and someone finished it, and I was like, oh, that's going to be like Giroud or like Abraham or whoever's up front at the time. And then Alonso is just wheeling away. It's like, what are you doing there?
I know. So it's just crazy. And if he can be back, if he can be a regular starter for us, it's a huge bonus, isn't it? Because he's a player we've got to consider again. And like rolling back the years a bit, it doesn't seem long ago that it was in the Chelsea team, but I thought it was over. It's almost like Alonso. We're never going to see Alonso in a Chelsea shirt again, but obviously not. So
he's a much bigger gamble than he's been in previous seasons because of Chilwell there.
True.
But I don't really think either of them are an option because of the competition. But he is an exciting punt, and I don't know if he's going to be brought on in games where he's subbed, because I don't really know why you'd bring him on unless maybe if you were chasing the game and you wanted to get a bit more attacking threat down there. But I don't know. In some ways, he's kind of safer, I think, because I think he's either going to play or he's not.
I guess we just got to wait and see. We need more data, don't we? We need to see more of the team selections and study the sub behaviours and stuff like that. It's early days, but Rudiger already, we highlight him as well here at 4.5 in a defence which is ranked second overall this season. We've got to consider it, haven't we?
Yeah, and Sheffield United, Newcastle's come after Spurs. I think he's just a strong pick. I think him and Holding at 4.5 there. You've got other players like Target and and then Sufal and guys. There's quite a lot of options actually under 5 million for defenders, but the defensive stats do indicate that Rudiger and Holding are going to be really, really good picks. You just don't really get much else from them, so they're not the sexiest. They're not the sexiest options.
Rudiger's got
solid.
A set piece for it. I mean, if Mount's taking corners, and you still think that Zuma's 4 goals early in the season.
Poor Zuma, he doesn't deserve to be dropped.
No,
he's been really good.
Yeah. He surprised us, didn't he? But he seems to have fallen by the wayside with Reece James as well. I mean, Hudson-Odoi as a wing back. I didn't see that coming at all. He's equipped for it. He's got all the characteristics you need for an attacking wing back. But
Victor Moses all over again.
Yeah, it is. But Reece James, who looked to be on his way to getting, the regular right back spot for England in the form he was on that trajectory, and Trent was on the way down. Suddenly, there's been a complete reversal. Trent's looking like he's edging back to form, and Reece can't get in the team now. So it's amazing how things change. Hudson-Odoi is on your midfielders list as well. Because I think he's 5'7".
So mad about Hudson-Odoi. Where's Hudson-Odoi? He's not a defender on the game.
No, he's not.
Not having in defence.
No, he's a midfielder. He's 5'7". Are you really thinking about that as an option? I guess if he starts getting goals and assists from that role.
Well, I mean, he's like he's poo, isn't he? He's the reverse out of position option. He's not a poo player, but he's a poo acronym. He's a bit like Solly March when Solly March was playing at wing back for Brighton.
Yeah.
I think his numbers were quite good, but it always puts you off a bit because you think they're going to have more defensive duties and going to have to drop back. So that does put me off a bit. But at the same time, he is class. He is a class player, and Lampard obviously didn't trust him because didn't play him even when they had injuries to everyone. but he seems to have done something to impress Tuchel. So he's not someone who I'm like, oh, you need to get in. There's so many midfield options to be considering that are ahead of him. But at the same time, if he does start putting in, if he does start scoring and assisting and stuff, then he might be someone to consider in the future. Hence the watch list.
Yep, absolutely. I won't dwell on too many other names, but Zaha I want to talk about because you've got him and I've got him. And I just want to go back to the ticker. And this is the fixture ticker over the next 6 game weeks ranked by attacking potential, and Palace are top of that. So Zaha's next game is Newcastle away, then Leeds away, Burnley at home, Brighton away, Fulham at home. That is an incredible run of fixtures for a player who is obviously central to Palace's attacking potential. Eze perhaps stealing some of his thunder recently. I was looking ahead to this period, and Zaha was the transfer I was going to make. And I was looking at the Rafinha and thinking he's going to make way for Zaha now. News today that Rafinha looks like he's going to make it. I think Costa played for the under-23s today for Leeds, which suggests that if Costa's in the under-23s, he's not needed for the Newcastle game. So therefore, Rafinha should be fit, it looks like. So I may well sit tight, but I am very tempted to look at Zaha. We talked about differentials during this period and how you can move away from the template to make that little bit different. I think Zaha is one of those players. I should perhaps go Grealish because Grealish is sensible. He's more template. He's more consistent. But I look at those fixtures and I'm really, really tempted by it. Particularly Newcastle and Leeds away next 2, because I think those 2 defences and Palace are more effective traditionally away from home as well. Are you going to talk me into it? I don't think it's a move you would do.
Well, you gave me some really good advice at the start. Well, not the start of the season. A couple of weeks in, and I had Ziyech, and you said to me, obviously Ziyech is a good player. Obviously he's ticking over with some decent returns, but do you not think that he's going to be a bit of a problem for you because he's not going to hit the heights of some of the other midfielders? And that's the reason why I sold Rafinha, because I looked at him and I thought, obviously a great player, obviously getting some returns. They are a bit sporadic. He only seems to be scoring away from home. And I look at the midfield and I think there are so many options in that midfield that could outscore him. And it almost feels like he's a bit restrictive, like to have a player like that who you're never really sure. Like he gets subbed quite early in games where they're not doing too well. I don't know. He hasn't really got that consistency that I think you'd get from Grealish or Zaha or someone else. So if it was me, I sold him last week. So that's my answer. I just think if you're comparing Rafinha to Grealish or Zaha, I think you're going to get more points from the other 2. So why not make the move?
No, absolutely. Well, I think when we look at my team in a bit, it's because there's an option to roll the transfer, of course, and have 2 going into 23, which is decent because then you can get the Spurs cover and one other change. I think my defence is looking a bit shaky there because City are playing Liverpool away, right? So very, very difficult when I've got Trent and 2 City defenders to put a decent defence out that I'm happy with. So having the roll transfer would be useful. But it's the debate between Grealish and Zaha. Like, Grealish seems so sensible. That seems the route to go down. Many people have already got him. I had him before. He's a player who often delivers something. He'll get you an assist. But I think the goal at Southampton was his first goal for some time. I think it's his first goal for about 8 or 9 game weeks. So he's not as productive as you think.
Against Burnley. He didn't score against Southampton.
Yeah, sorry, against Burnley, rather. So I think it's, Zaha, I think, has more of a goal threat. I think, strangely, even though he's often peripheral in some games, you don't notice him as much as you perhaps should. But I do think Newcastle, Leeds, and Burnley is a trio of games where he could outscore Grealish. So it is. I think it's a close call for me, and it's whether or not I want to be different and try and steal a march, or whether I want to just settle in, do the sensible move, which is how I see Grealish. So that at the moment is a bit of a debate for me. Up front, we both got Wilson highlighting. I think we've said earlier that he's the only player who looks likely to break the quartet for us. I would consider Watkins as well, of course. He's on my list, he's on yours. But Wilson is the one that I'm really watching as having the potential to get in and change things up for me. But it will depend on what we see over the next few games, whether Newcastle really have changed. Okay, let's look at the predictions because FBL Pop
Josh King to sorry, just to interrupt. Josh King to Everton is looking like it's confirmed.
Is it? Now that's interesting. Where would he fit in? I mean, he's not going to displace Calvert-Lewin. He can play out wide, so perhaps, I guess, right side. with Richarlison left side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be if they do play King, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, that's quite attacking and that's quite fluid as well. Interesting. Right. Didn't expect Everton to be his destination. Is that a permanent move as well?
I think it's a short-term move with a kind of the assumption that he's going to sign.
Yeah, good signing, good player, and quite an interesting one. Right, prediction standing. So FPL Pot Noodle is measuring our accuracy with our predictions every week. That was your idea, Az. I just want to point that out. Nothing to do with me. I'm not trying to seek more advantage over you in any shape or form. But the numbers don't lie. Already early on, an early lead, 20 matches played. I've got a 50% strike rate. You've gone 45, but you're better.
It's not bad though, is it? For both of us,
50%. You're on 45. We've only got 3 scores correct, but I've got 10 of the 20 correct. You've got 9 of the 20 correct in terms of outcomes. You're very good on the clean sheets, though. Look at that, 61.5% hit rate. 8 correct clean sheets you predicted, which so listen to us when it comes to defensive points. So interesting. That's how we stand. We're going to check in with that every couple of weeks, but at the moment, early advantage for me.
Very small sample, isn't it?
It is a very small
sample. That's definitely going to get worse.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll be impressed if we can keep a 50% strike rate up. I did really think when we've been doing this for, I guess 17 game weeks before we started measuring it, I really thought we were pretty awful. Actually, that suggests we're not that bad. So perhaps better than Lawrenson. Don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe we should track Lawrenson's. Okay, let's do our predictions for game week 22. We start with a Tuesday fixture, a 6 o'clock fixture, which, if you happen to be still at work at 6 o'clock, you maybe aren't going to worry about missing Sheffield United West Brom. It's one of those relegation 6-pointers, of course. Where do you see this going? Az, I'll let you go first. I always do, so I'll let you go first. Go on.
Yeah, interesting one. West Brom tend to be better away from home. Sheffield United have actually started to look a bit like they're putting up a fight, but it's probably a bit too late. Tricky one. I actually think West Brom will win it.
Do you?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, it's one of those. They need to win it. I mean, obviously, everyone needs to win it. Everyone needs to win every game. It's such a stupid thing to say, but. I think with Brighton now starting to pull away a little bit, that result against Spurs was absolutely huge. These are the kind of games that Allardyce has been brought in to win. And they were absolutely dreadful against Fulham, like for such long periods of that game.
First half was shocking, wasn't it, for them?
God, I mean, but managed to get a draw. I mean, how he managed to salvage a draw out of that game is a miracle, and that's what he's there to do. So I think he'll get something in this. I fancy him to win it. I'll go for a 1-0 West Brom.
Right. You see, I'm going to play Johnson in this, so I want to predict 1-0 West Brom, but in my heart of hearts, I think Sheffield United are going to nick it. Because I do think there's been shoots of recovery recently, and the data suggests they're finding some of the form they had last season, a bit more consistency. Brewster actually looked a bit lively in the last game, believe it or not. So his first goal might be just around the corner, but we'll see. But I think that Sheffield United win it 2-1. I'm still going to play Johnston because obviously the clean sheet for West Brom away from home seems to be more likely they're going to get a clean sheet on their travels than they are at the Hawthorns. They're absolutely dreadful in home matches. No idea why that is, but that's why I'm looking at it.
I think one of them will win it. I'm confident on that. I just don't know. I'm not entirely sure which way, but I'll stick with West Brom.
I'll go 2-1 Sheffield United. Wolves versus Arsenal. Every time I look at
that's
Wolves,
6 o'clock games.
I know. As I say, you're not going to rush home from work, are you? And if you're working from home, you're not going to worry too much if you've got some emails to send at 6 o'clock. Wolves versus Arsenal. Every time Wolves come up in the predictions, I just can't see them scoring. And the last two games, I've said 0-0 and 1-0 to Palace, and I've got them right. I'm pretty good at predicting Wolves, so I'll go 2-0 Arsenal.
Yeah. I was the same with it was Palace Wolves last week, wasn't it? And I was like, I think Palace will score, and I don't think Wolves will score.
Yeah, we both
it seems
got
like
it
a really
right.
easy prediction, and I feel that again. I mean, what has happened to Wolves? We say every week. It's just embarrassing.
It's worrying.
It's worrying. Yeah, I never fancy him to score. I never fancy him to get anything out of the games. I think Arsenal are a good side at the moment. Their defensive stats, like you said, are absolutely brilliant. It was a terrible It's a terrible game for a team that can't score to be playing one of the best defenses in the
Yeah.
league.
Yeah.
So I'll go. I think I'll agree with you. You said 2-0. I'll say 2-0 as well. Yeah, I think you're probably right with that.
Yeah, it's actually true. Actually, I think the games with Wolves in are the easiest to predict at the moment because you just don't see them scoring, and you see them they're actually conceding chances as well. It's not settled. I don't know. It's just lots of things have gone wrong. Nuno's almost gone back to square one. He's got to start again in the summer, I think. So obviously Jimenez is a big loss, but there's been other problems. United, Southampton. Southampton always cause United problems, and we saw them trip up against Sheffield United the last home game. They didn't impress me at Arsenal particularly. It was a bit of a dour game overall. You kind of think United should win. I mean, if they don't get 3 points here, the top four aspirations are beginning to falter in a big way, aren't they? I think title aspirations gone now, I would say, if they don't get a result. So I will go with 2-1 United. I think Ings will score. 2-1.
You think they'll nick it? Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna go for a 1-1. I don't really. I think Southampton were really unlucky against Villa not to get anything out of that game, and United have just been abject for that's 2 matches now. It's Sheffield United match and the Arsenal game, and I don't know what it is. I don't know whether they're a bit tired or what. They just seem to have lost something. And Southampton, I think, are going to come out of this slump soon because they're too good a side to keep, not getting points. So yeah, I'll go for a 1-1. Title aspirations are done.
Newcastle Palace, awful in terms of. Well, it would have been awful a couple of game weeks ago. I actually think I'm going to buy into this revival under Bruce. I do think Palace can score here, so I think there'll be quite a few goals here. I'm going to go 2-2. I'm going to go a goal bonanza, and I'll go 2-2. Palace tend to be more effective away from home. Zaha can hurt Newcastle for sure, but I do think Sam Maximin might actually start this game. Maybe he's not ready yet, but I do like what I've seen from Wilson and Fraser. So I'm going to go Newcastle get a couple, Palace to also get a couple. I'll go 2-2.
Newcastle heavily backed in the chat. Really? Most people saying 2-1, 2-1 Newcastle. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I've got a funny feeling Palace might nick it.
Right.
I'll go for a 1-0 Palace.
Right, interesting. Okay, well, you're very good on the clean sheets.
Against the crowd.
Yeah. Burnley, Man City. Only one direction this is going, I would have said. Burnley a strange team at the moment, though. Very hard to read. I mean, that win over Villa was out of nowhere. 3 goals as well. But at the moment, I don't think they're as defensively tight as they have been in the past. Data certainly shows that we looked at earlier. City never win convincingly at Burnley, though. They always manage to get the result and manage the game out. I remember the game where Sterling missed.
Really? City batter Burnley, don't they?
At home, like not at Turf Moor, though. They always do a professional performance against Burnley at Turf Moor. They always go there and win by the odd goal and shut it down. And I think we've seen them do that at Sheffield United this season. I think it's a similar performance from Man City. I don't think we're going to see what they did to West Brom. You'd think that, I don't know how much rotation there will be. Obviously, they've got a game at the weekend as well. I always think Pep as well worries about Burnley, as in he'll rest some players because he's worried about the physicality of Burnley.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see more rotation. But I think City will win by, I'm going to go 1-0.
1-0. Wow. That is very, very, yeah, that's not a big score at all. I mean, I think one thing we can 100% agree on is that Burnley are not going to score in this game. I think Chris Wood's out. They didn't have a single shot against Chelsea.
No, there's no goal.
City, I mean, but then, who would have thought Burnley would have ended Liverpool's 69 matches at home streak? So they're a team capable of causing a bit of a surprise, but I think, like you say, I think Pep takes this one really, really seriously. And we're probably going to see the strongest team possible going out. I'll be a bit more, I think they're going to win it a bit more confidently. I think I'll go for a 3-0.
Interesting. Yeah, I just think City always approach this game in a professional way. But I seem to remember a couple of times they've gone there and they've just done the job and then see the game out. And they've been doing that. I mean, certainly, at
Sheffield
the
United, exactly what they did.
They did it. Yeah. So, I mean, they were like, well, you're not going to score. So if we just keep the ball, we're not fussed if we get another one. We'd like another one. And they obviously tried, but they didn't look like they were committing too much, were they, to the cause of getting second goal. They were more content with playing it around and seeing the game out. And I worry that that's what we're going to get here. They're going to get an early goal, first half goal, and then second half we'll just see them manage it. And I'm not sure Burnley have got enough to worry City into going for a second goal, going really after it. So 1-0 I'm going for.
Yeah.
Fulham Leicester. I like, I look at this and think Leicester's performance against Leeds was a bit worrying. Vardy could be back, couldn't he? So that could be a big factor. But
do you think he'll be back?
there's talk that he could.
Seems early.
It's talk that he could be close to a return. I don't know if it's for this game or for Saturday, but I saw stories today saying he's nearing returns. I like Fulham in this game, though. I think they'll get something. I'm going to go 1-1.
Vardy's out, the chat says.
So Vardy is out the Fulham game, right? It must be Saturday that he's being penciled in for them. I'll go 1-1 anyway. I think Fulham will get a point.
Yeah, I think they will as well. I'll go 2-2. That was my first thought. Which is strange because you think Leicester and how good they've been and the top 4 potential and stuff, and if they lose to Leeds and draw with Fulham, that's a massive dent to their hopes. But Ndidi out is just huge. Vardy out is huge. Perez doesn't have he's just not good enough up front. They haven't got any replacement. They haven't signed anyone today. I thought they might get some. Iheanacho just isn't trusted even slightly, is he? And I like Fulham. I mean, I'm amazed. Parker must be fuming that they let West Brom back into that game because, like you said, dominate. I've never seen a team dominate a team as maybe Chelsea v Burnley, but Fulham West Brom must have been close. So yeah, they're a team that can still concede goals, but I think they can score. So yeah, I'll go 2.
Yeah, I think here Leicester with Ndidi and Vardy have lost potentially their best attacking player is definitely is Vardy, but the best defensive player as well. So it's like both ends of the pitch, those two are affecting them. And I just that second half performance against Leeds was worrying. They never really. I mean, when Barnes got the early goal, like you, I was thinking, he's going to get a double figure return, and Leicester are going to rack up 3 or 4 goals, and they just dropped out of it completely. Just Leeds started to dominate and create chances, and Leicester just didn't seem to have a reply. And I just think against Fulham will be confident. They that's what strikes me about Fulham. They approach every game with some degree of confidence now. I think they know they can play and they can live with some of the bigger teams. And I don't think they'll be intimidated by Leicester without Vardy and Ndidi. So I definitely see a point. Leeds Everton, I think there'll be goals here because I think we've seen from the data Leeds defence will give opportunities up to Everton. Calvert-Lewin should get a couple of chances, and what we've seen so far this season, he takes them when he gets them. Don't know what body part he'll convert it with, but he'll score. Right, left ear lobe or something. So I am going to go with. Shall I go 3-2 Everton? No, I'm going to go 3-2 Leeds. 3-2 Leeds.
3-2 Leeds. Interesting. I mean, that would be again another massive blow for Everton's chances of getting into the top 4 as well. So. Yeah, kind of writing off Leeds and Leicester and Everton. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to back Everton for this one. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Everton. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet. It could be 3-2 or something like that. But I think Everton will have enough. And Leeds, they're just going to be so tired. That's the thing.
Well, you expect that, don't you? I expected that in the Leicester game. I thought, well, okay, with 20 minutes to go, Leicester will get back on top, but it didn't happen. And they are, many people say, well, they're going to be the fittest team in the Premier League because of the methods that Bielsa uses to train the murder ball stories and all that. They are, in terms of media attention and hype that commentators and pundits give them, they are, right up there with the top 6 teams, aren't they? It's incredible how much has been written about them and said about them this season. And there's a lot of myths around them. And we do expect them to fade, but it seems. I mean, Leeds fans are on Twitter saying that's a myth. Don't put any stock into that. So we'll see. I think
as Will Handley in the chat didn't get my joke.
Oh, well,
tired. You don't know Leeds as that was a joke. Come on.
I mean, the thing is as well. I think that because they come up from the Championship, any team that comes up in the Championship is used to this schedule of midweek weekend. So I don't think that'll catch up with them. But yeah, we'll see. I do.
If it hasn't up to this point, it's doubtful it's going to now.
Exactly. Villa West Ham. I think this is a really hard one to call. This is what my dilemma about whether I get Grealish or Zaha comes down to this game.
Week is hard. All of the fixtures I think are hard, particularly hard this week, except for that City game.
I just don't know what to expect. I mean, Villa are a strong attacking side. They create chances. Watkins isn't ruthless enough to take those chances a lot of the time, but Barkley's return is important to them. And when he scored the goal at Southampton, I'm thinking, well, Barkley's someone I should maybe consider as well. But West Ham, I don't know what we're going to get. Defensively, they've been strong, but Liverpool just absolutely bossed that game. I'm going to go 0-0. I'm going to go 0-0.
Really?
Yeah, I always like a 0-0 in there somewhere, and I think for me this is the best candidate other than Wolves Arsenal, but I think Arsenal win that. So,
That'd be a shame because both teams are so good. Like I think about a lot of the best matches I've seen over the last sort of few months, and they've involved Leeds, Villa, and West Ham. Really, I don't think it's going to be 0-0. I mean, I've currently got all three of my West Ham players benched, and I'm thinking about it now, and I'm actually thinking I kind of fancy West Ham to get something out of this. I think Villa were lucky, and I think West Ham just gave Liverpool too much respect and didn't really fancy getting at them. And you saw it with the short corners. And I think you saw it with Antonio's performance and stuff. I think they were probably looking for a 0-0 or a narrow loss or to nick it kind of late on. I think they're going to go at Villa with a bit more intent. So I'm going to go for West Ham. I'm going to go for 2-1. 2-1 West Ham.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so no clean sheet for Martinez. Right, I just see them cancelling each other out. I think they're in similar form. They both got attacking potential, but I think the defences are strong as well. I just think they'll cancel each other out. So
yeah, you could be right.
Liverpool Brighton. Right. So I tweeted after the Salah goals that he basically made every captain poll redundant because everyone's going to go Salah captain. So with that in mind, I've got to back Liverpool a win here. Don't think it'll be easy because Brighton's defence, they're beginning to produce clean sheets now to go with the numbers, aren't they? So 1-0 might be a popular scoreline. I guess 2-0 is the Lawrenson scoreline. So I'll have to go with the Lawrenson 2-0 again, I think. Do you think you're going to score?
I don't know. I think someone posted we have a drink every time man says I don't know, something like that on these. I don't know. They're hard to know. If I knew them, I'd be a millionaire. Make all my money from betting. Brighton have been good against some of these top sides, and it's the way Potter sets them up. And I've said it before. He sets them up not just to sit back and just invite pressure. He's not going to do what Moyes did with West Ham and just let Liverpool keep coming at them until eventually they score. He goes out to attack, and I think it unsettles teams. I think it's going to unsettle Liverpool, who haven't been that good either defensively or attacking wise. It's very hard to back against Liverpool to win it, but I think it's going to be a narrow win. I reckon I'll go for a 2-1, a 2-1 Liverpool.
Yeah, we talked about Dunk's role at set pieces. I mean, set pieces is where Brighton can cause some problems, I think. But I'm expecting Liverpool to dominate again. I'm actually was impressed with the way they defended at West Ham. Apart from the set pieces, they looked pretty good. They looked in control. I wasn't expecting that. I thought Antonio would cause them a lot of problems, but maybe that had more to do with West Ham's performance, so we'll see. And finally, Spurs-Chelsea. We have no idea what the team sheet's going to be from Chelsea. We'll see if there's even more surprises. We know what we're going to get from Spurs. We're going to get a performance which is going to be aimed at winning this game 1-0, I expect. 1-0 would be a popular scoreline. I might back Chelsea. I'm going to go 1-0 Chelsea.
0-0.
0-0. Is that your goalless draw, is it?
That's my goalless draw. I think it's got 0-0 written all over it. Spurs, Mourinho is going to be like, right, well, we can't score against them. Kane's out. We've got no attacking play whatsoever. Let's just not let them score.
Do you think he'll change it up for this game? Do you think that...
Can he? Has he got the options to change it up? I don't even know if he has. I mean, he did that weird thing against Liverpool where he put like Aurier and Doherty on, but then... Now he hates Aurier for some reason. I mean, after that match, he managed to fall out with Bale, Aurier. Who else? He someone else was annoyed with him as well. He's just doing his thing where he just gets on everyone's nerves. But yeah, I think Chelsea still aren't scoring loads of goals. They drew 0-0 against Wolves, only barely scraped through against Burnley despite being completely dominant. And I think that'll suit Mourinho. And he'd be happy with 0-0. He's always happy with 0-0.
I mean, Chelsea normally do all right in this game, in this fixture, away at Spurs. I think they won it last season and the season before that, maybe. But I just, in my head, I think Spurs always perform well in the Spurs away game. They had a bit of a hoodoo over them for a long time. So, yeah, I think Chelsea 1-0 would be where I'm going. So let's see how, if I keep my 50% strong.
Quite different our predictions this week.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is it. It's quite nice. And see if you run in the clean sheets again. Okay, let's look at our teams. So, Az, do you want to talk us from 1 to 11 what you're fielding for Gameweek 22 at the moment?
Sure. So I've got Martinez in goal. I've got Robertson, Cancelo captain currently. John Stones, Luca Dean, Salah, Fernandes, Son, Gundogan, Calvert-Lewin and Bamford. And then my bench, my 3 West Ham players who I'm backing to win, Antonio, Souček, and Soufal, who I don't feel happy benching any of them, but I'm looking at my team and thinking, don't really know who to bench here.
What
And
you've
this is the
done,
problem with all the premiums being out and me having a strong squad.
what you've done, you've taken a hit to get Dina, and now you can't bring yourself to bench him to play
Yeah.
Antonio. And I think that could really go badly for you. I'd be worried about not playing Antonio, even though I think I've said 0-0 Villa West Ham. I think you've always got to start Antonio. And the player that I would drop would be Dina. But of course, you've taken a hit to get him in, so you're not going to want to do that.
I'm not benching Dina off to take a -8, and I think he's up against Eiling, who likes to get forward himself. I think he's going to have a good. I think Dean's going to have a good day crossing, and I do think Godfrey could be back in the team, meaning Dean goes further up the pitch. I mean, I could bench boost this team. Is what a few people in the chat are saying.
Yeah.
I deliberately didn't bench boost over the double game because I wasn't feeling it. But then if I bench boost this team, it's similar to what you had. Bench boost this team. You had Leeds losing 1-0 to Brighton. Villa win this 1-0, and I'm in the mud. So I'm a bit reluctant to do that. But I do want to play Antonio. I just don't really know how. I mean, I was talking to Andy earlier. We did a little video thing, a little podcast thing.
Yeah, you were seeing other podcasts on the same evening.
I was going behind your back. Sorry, Mark. He said if he had this team, he'd 100% bench Son.
No chance he'd do that, surely. He captained Son last week, and he's
well, you're backing 1-0 Chelsea. I'm backing 0-0 Spurs.
Yeah. This is a man who's in the top 1,000 as well. Who are we to question him? But
I know.
Interesting. I think you've got a dilemma there. You definitely got a dilemma. So, is this locked now? You're done. You're not going to make a transfer, and
the captain is because I think the rest for Cancelo means he's almost certainly going to play, and I just cannot see any world in which Burnley score in that game. No. I think, like you say, I think this is a game that Pep takes seriously. He's going to want a professional performance against them. I think the 6 points is almost locked in, and you've got a defender who drifts into midfield, and he's going to have, they're going to sit back, and he's going to have so much room to put in crosses and to burst forward. Stuff. So I think a haul for him could well be on the cards.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if
Liverpool are going to struggle a bit, United are going to struggle a bit. Why not?
Yeah, it depends whether we get a performance in City with a few goals or whether they do what I tipped, which is just shut it down. But we don't know. I think I've got Cancelo as my vice, so I had similar thinking in that it's the 6 points. So I haven't actually got him in my vice there, but I was thinking about putting him in my vice. I've put the old team in. I've got Calvert-Lewin as my vice at the moment, but Salah's my captain right now, just because I'm worried about not captaining him after what we saw, those two finishes and the confidence he'll take into Brighton game. And I do think Liverpool win. And it's like I said, when you're tipping Liverpool to win, when Mane's a doubt, you've got to think Salah's got to be in the points. My dilemma is whether to play Rafinha or sell him and get someone like Zaha or Grealish in, or whether I roll the transfer for 23 and take 2 into that. Because, like I said, I probably need to get Son for that fixture. Do you think if Spurs disappoint against Chelsea, you would consider going without Son for 23?
Is that for West Brom? No.
Right.
No. I mean, I did debate selling Son for Grealish this week because I've got the free transfer, and Grealish has got who's he got this week? He's playing West Ham.
He's playing West Ham,
and then he's playing Arsenal. And I really don't like not having Grealish. I love it. He's great. And watching Son was painful yesterday. But it's just that West Brom game. I'm looking at the captains and I'm just thinking there isn't anyone else I really want to captain. And if I sell Son, I'm basically getting rid of what I think is my best captain option for that week. So he's going to cling on to my team just for that thing. I mean, but after that, he could go.
You've got Son, I haven't. That's the difference. But we'll look at the captain matrix next, and that's the dilemma. It's just 23. He's like a beacon. He stands out from any other captain option there, and not having him. So that's in my mind about whether Rafinha got the goal against Everton last time out. He's playing well. The adage that I'm working to is you don't sell a player who's getting you points, and Rafinha's getting me points. So I know what you were saying about, well, his upside's not that high. His ceiling is perhaps a single figure return. He has got double figures once this season, recently at Newcastle, of course.
Yep. So
I'm reluctant to sell him because he's been delivering for me, and it's a good fixture. and Zaha's always a gamble, and Grealish is a step towards, if you like, the template. So that's the dilemma I'm with at the moment, and I've obviously got till tomorrow evening to sort that one out in my head. As it stands right now, I'm rolling the transfer, and I'm going to play Rafinha because I think Leeds get a couple of goals against Everton. So that's what I'm going with. It's Johnson in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, Diaz, Rafinha, Bruno, Gundogan, Salah captain, Antonio, Bamford, and Calvert-Lewin. I might move the vice to Cancelo because what do you think about Salah's chances of being rested? If Mane's back, do you think there's a possibility of that?
Could be. I think it's a dangerous game to try and predict who's going to be rested and who isn't. I mean, trying to predict, there's rumours around that Gundogan's going to be rested. I mean, you just can't know. Like I just think if you spend too much time worrying about who's going to be in and out of the team based on little evidence, it's unless we see Robertson taking Salah out of his team, if that's I guess it's post deadline, so you wouldn't even know, so it wouldn't even really help you. I just think it's you can't worry about it, especially around this. There's so many games, anyone could be rested. We've seen it. We've seen whole teams be rested. Throughout. So yeah,
but it's because obviously
I don't think it's something to...
Liverpool play City next, right? So they're and I said to you about Pep. I think does worry about Burnley and the physicality in it players. I think there'll be a shock somewhere in that City lineup. I wouldn't be surprised. Could be Gundogan, Salah. Unless Mane's 100% and firing, I don't think Klopp can risk it because Brighton aren't going to be an easy team to break down. So I think Salah's all right. Gundogan, perhaps I would say, is the higher risk for rotation. But then Gundogan's been so important to them. Does he play Jesus at Burnley? He may well go with the system he had at West Brom. So if that's the same, then he'll play Gundogan, I think. So it's very difficult. But anyway, I'm going to tweet as usual if I do change my mind on this, if I do go Rafinha to Zaha. At the moment, I'm sticking with this and then rolling my transfer over. Captain Matrix, then. We talked about Gameweek 23. And yeah, here it is in front of us. I've got Kane in there. Yeah, I've got Kane in Gameweek 22. He's not going to be back for 22. He's probably not going to be back for 23 either, but he's in there as a consideration. But without Son as the alternative, we're looking at Fernandes at Everton, Fernandes at home to Everton, Antonio at Fulham, Salah, Man City, and Gundogan against Liverpool. Antonio at Fulham is the alternative, I think. But the thing is,
I remember really early on in the season, everyone was thinking, as soon as I think it was after West Ham's really awful fixture run, I think they had Fulham next. And I think you, Luke, and me were all saying, right, we're going to get Antonio in, and we're going to captain him against Fulham, and it's going to be glorious. And he didn't quite make it because his fitness wasn't quite there. Now we've got the opportunity again to think about it.
But Fulham's defence isn't as fragile as it once was, so that's it does put you off. But he's the alternative at the moment. But I think I have to, if I'm going to roll my transfer this week, it will be to make sure I get Son and probably change my defence up. Looking forward as well, Spurs are also the top go-to route in game week 26 when hopefully Kane is back. We've got De Bruyne and Gundogan against West Ham, and then Salah at Sheffield United. Salah at Sheffield United, I remember last season it was quite a hard watch, and I don't think Liverpool roll them over by a big margin. So again, I think having Son and Kane around for that. But game week 26, of course, we expect to be the double game week, so everything will change for that game week when we know who's dropping in there. So it'd be wildcard in 25, double game week 26. But you're not certain. So you've yet to look at that then. You don't really know for sure you're going to do that. You might do something.
Yeah, I can't really comment. I haven't really looked into it. I'd hope to save my wildcard for later on in the season. I like to play it where we've got, not a huge amount of weeks left, so I can really build my team for like the final 6-7 weeks. That would be the aim. But obviously if I need to do it because of doubles and blanks and stuff, then I will. But yeah, I can't really comment too much. I haven't really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've looked at these last few game weeks and stopped looking at fixtures beyond 24 because I know I'm going to wildcard in 25. So again, when I look at this captain matrix, I only have to worry about this game week 23 and 24 really because I think odds are I will.
It's just weird because I feel like I've finally got my team to like a good team.
Yeah, and then you're going to wildcard.
2 weeks going to bin a lot of them off.
It is difficult to do. That's how I felt about the wildcard at Christmas, in that I didn't want to play it, but I knew I had to because of the bench boost and the double game weeks. I said on Twitter that I'm really reluctant to play this because my team looked really settled and I'm really happy with it, and I knew I had to rip it up, and it went okay in the end, but it was reluctant. And I think you'll be in a similar shot. You might just get back on the level again, and then it's like, oh, right, okay. And then it's like, well, I've got to make at least 5 or 6 changes to make it worthwhile. I guess you hope the double game week steer you in a certain direction. So let's look at captaincy this week. Cancelo is in my table, so he's very much someone that I think we need to consider with this fixture because, again, Burnley scoring a goal looks very remote. At the moment, in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement, Calvert-Lewin is the go-to pick. He's out in front ahead of Salah, 143.4 minutes per expected goal involvement compared to 160.4. This is goal involvement taking out penalties. So Calvert-Lewin, again, like he was in the previous game week, could be a captaincy option. I don't think people are going to go there because of how he performed against Newcastle, but I do think there's a return against Leeds, particularly when you look at the defensive data. And over the seasons, Leeds' defence is the kindest amongst the defences up against our candidates here. Cancelo, though, obviously goal involvement is going to be the lowest there, but it's just the 6 points, isn't it? It's just that you think that's locked in, don't you?
Yeah, it feels like there's potential for big returns, and we've seen him haul already. Just because he's, people might say, oh, he's had his haul now. Just because he's had one big haul doesn't mean he's not capable of getting another haul. We've seen it all season. His stats have been amazing, and I just think it's him having the rest that really just makes me want to go for it, because he's going to be unleashed against Burnley, and I think he just offers so much generally, and against a team that's just gonna sit back. I can just see it. I can just see him putting in cross after cross after cross and getting into midfield and taking up some really good positions. And it depends on who else plays in the team. But if Mahrez is back in, he links up really well with Mahrez as well. And I think Mahrez will play this match. So
and what's interesting here, I mean, if Gundogan was certain to start, look at Gundogan's minutes per shot and minutes per shot in the box. He's outperforming Son. So minutes per shot, 40.3. Minutes per shot in the box, 56.4. Son is at 45 minutes per shot and 65.7 minutes per shot in the box. So Gundogan's rise to this consideration for the captaincy is extraordinary when you consider his data is actually stronger than Son, who was the top FPL point scorer not so long ago, not now because Salah's back on top. So it's incredible. If Gundogan was nailed on, there's an argument to say we should be backing him for the captaincy, given that Burnley we're expecting will give up opportunities. And the defensive data suggests the last 4 matches, Burnley have conceded an expected goal, non-penalty every 52 minutes, which is the worst of the 5 teams that we're looking at here over the last 4. And they're conceding a shot every 4.6 minutes. So that's incredibly high, or low rather. So a lot of opportunities should go City's way if City decide to go for the throat, and that's what we don't know. If they do what they did at West Brom, it could be massive.
Sorry. A lot of people asking about Sterling in the chat, and if I had him, I'd captain him.
I mean, he should start, shouldn't he? Given that he missed out last time.
Exactly.
And he's had a bad time at Turf Moor before. He's missed opportunities there, but he's the kind of player that will cause him a lot of problems. You've got to think quick and nimble, with his ball at his feet, running that pace against that Burnley defence, who are strong, physically strong, but perhaps don't cope with those players who are technical players on the ground. So we'll see. I mean, it's set up, but it just worries me what Pep will do there, whether he'll manage the game out or whether he'll let the team loose and score 3 or 4 goals like he did at West Brom. We don't know what we're going to get, but it looks like you're going Cancelo. I'm going to play safe with Salah. I don't know if I'm going to change my mind. I think I'm going to do that, unless there's more rumour of Salah rest, which is very, very difficult to predict, as we've said. Okay, all that's left, I think, is for the smash and likes as usual. It's show smash 20 is done. Now, are we going to do another show before Game Week 23? I guess we have to, don't we? We have to come back later in the week. How are you fixed? I shouldn't have asked you this. I should have asked you this off air, shouldn't I?
Oh, the pressure. No, I'm good. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. It's my birthday on Thursday. It is.
Happy birthday.
My birthday on Thursday. Right. Thank you. And I'm afraid I'm Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, I'm doing various Zoom thingies with people. So I don't think I'm going to be able to.
I think having your birthday on Thursday is a good enough excuse. Don't worry. So we'll have to tweet our predictions and our captaincy and our teams ahead of Game Week 23. Well, happy birthday in advance of Thursday. I'll be there to.
Thank you. That's a nice message in the chat too. Much appreciated.
Yes. So I think we had a big crowd in tonight, which is nice. I think it's a later start time. We've got 1,800 people watching right now, which is great to see.
Yep. And the best birthday present you can give me is hitting the like button. You can subscribe to the channel. You might notice I'm a bit more active on Instagram these days. I'm trying to get an Instagram presence.
What are you
I don't really get it.
pictures of your food and stuff, or what are you doing?
No, I'm trying to put a little story up, a little picture of like the desk saying getting ready for BlackBox with Mark later,
nice. Yeah.
that kind of thing. I don't really know what I'm doing, but it seems like a way to try and boost our profile a little bit.
Well, what you're
Give me a
doing is
follow on there as well.
you're trying to just stalk Patrick Bamford, and you thought Instagram would be a way in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more followers I have, the more likely it is that he, gets back to me. Because if he sees I've got like 20 followers, he's going to, who's this nobody? If I've got like 20,000, he's going to be like, whoa, this is a big deal.
It's important.
Better get involved.
Are you trying to stalk Magnus on there as well? Is that part of it?
Yeah.
You've got to leave these.
Is he on Instagram?
He's got to be,
need to follow him.
Pictures of the chess pieces, various different shades of light and stuff. Be quite nice.
Absolutely.
Do some arty stuff with a chess set. I'm sure he's all over Instagram.
Yeah.
There you go. It's
like and sub, please.
Yeah, like and sub. We won't see you later in the week, but we'll be back next week ahead of Game Week 24, of course, which looks like it's going to be a double game week. So we'll have plenty to discuss then.
Mad.
It's a good night from me.
Good night, everyone.